A man is using the restroom. The next second, a spider crawls out of the toilet. Just yesterday, during an interrogation, an agent actually used a spider monster cultivated by scientists to torture a traitor. A giant spider crawled slowly from the traitor's chest onto his face. Pavel, standing nearby, couldn't bear to watch and angrily denounced the agent's despicable behavior. Pavel stated that cultivating spiders wasn't meant to harm people, but the agent wouldn't listen, ordering Pavel to fly the latest batch of cultivated spiders to the US for further research. If he refused, he would get a taste of death. Forced and helpless, Pavel had to comply. So the next day, the spiders were packed into a wooden crate and placed in the cargo hold. Shortly after takeoff, unexpected mild turbulence caused the crate holding the spiders to fall and hit the floor. Pavel, sitting in the last row, was very worried, fearing something might go wrong with the spiders mid-flight. Clearly, his worry wasn't unfounded, and the crate was suddenly pushed open by spiders. Immediately after, countless spiders swarmed out. A flight attendant faintly heard noises coming from the cargo hold. Taking her job seriously, she hurried down to investigate. The plane hit turbulence again. She stumbled and nearly fell in the hold, finally crawling to the fallen crate, only to find it completely empty. But as she stood up, a giant spider was slowly approaching her. Soon the plane stabilized, but then an alarm suddenly blared, indicating the cargo hold temperature was too high. Co-pilot Steven immediately got up to check. Meanwhile, Pavel was restless, still worried about the spiders in the hold. He asked flight attendant Elsa to take him to check on his crate, but Elsa kept reassuring Pavel not to panic, that it was just mild turbulence and surely no problem, also reminding him not to move about the cabin. Helpless, Pavel had to stay seated. Meanwhile, Steven had reached the cargo hold, completely unaware of the spider behind him. Zach went to the restroom to put in his contact lenses. However, a tiny spider had crawled into his lens case. When Zach inserted his contact lens, he had no idea he was putting the spider into his eye.
Why is it always me?
At the same time, Steven discovered large amounts of cobwebs in the hold. As he walked further inside, he was horrified to find the flight attendant's body wrapped in a cocoon of spider silk. At that moment, the sound of silk spinning came from behind him. When Steven slowly turned around, he saw countless spiders crawling all over the cargo hold. His scream instantly alarmed the passengers. Elsa quickly made up an excuse to brush it off, not even considering checking the hold. By now, Zach's eye was bleeding from the spider, causing temporary blindness. The spiders had now successfully infiltrated the passenger cabin. One spider descended slowly on a silk thread, trying to slip into a sleeping passenger's mouth. Unexpectedly, the passenger raised his hand, swatting the spider aside. Zach, trying to stop his eye from bleeding, used his necktie for a makeshift bandage over his left eye. More and more spiders were appearing in the cabin. One crawled up an old man's pant leg and bit him. Elsa quickly took the old man to the medical area for examination. Other passengers watched the commotion, but Pavel seemed to realize the spiders were the cause, growing tense and uneasy. Meanwhile, the cockpit alarm kept blaring, but Steven hadn't returned. Left with no choice, Captain Paul activated autopilot, preparing to go to the cargo hold himself. Zach, unable to bear the pain in his eye, cried out loudly. He felt his appearance was too hideous and refused to leave the restroom. Passengers outside heard the scream and asked Elsa what was happening. Unaware, Elsa again made up a reason to calm them. Paul reached the cargo hold and discovered 2 bodies. He then noticed the swarm of spiders. By the time Paul escaped back to the cabin, he was covered in blood. He shouted for all passengers to run to the back. Seeing Paul collapsed on the floor, Elsa finally learned about the biting spiders in the hold.
Spiders in the hold.
As soon as he finished speaking, Paul passed out. A man spotted spiders advancing towards them. Everyone began scrambling towards the rear of the plane. Passengers who were too slow became covered in spiders and were bitten to death. Still in the restroom, Zach heard the chaos outside and tried to come out, but the door was mysteriously jammed, keeping him safe by accident. Elsa tripped while fleeing. A spider instantly jumped onto her chest, causing her whole body to tremble in fear. Corinne, running nearby, acted swiftly, smashing the spider to pieces with a fire extinguisher. A large spider then crawled onto a man's back. Corinne bravely stepped in again, quickly killing it with a suitcase. Others joined in, grabbing anything they could find and crushing the spiders one by one. Working together, they eliminated the spiders near them. Everyone was completely exhausted, mentally and physically devastated. Corinne urged them to rest and prepare for more danger that might still be coming. Meanwhile, a giant spider reached the first-class cabin, launching indiscriminate attacks on the wealthy passengers. A man wearing headphones was completely unaware of the events behind him. Spider venom dripped onto his shoulder. By the time he noticed and tried to flee, it was too late. The few survivors huddled together in the tail section, discussing why so many spiders, especially ones of such enormous size, were being transported on the plane. Pavel, who had been hiding earlier, walked over. He told everyone he was the one who brought the spiders onto the flight. Gracie immediately punched Pavel upon hearing this.
Let's go, Gracie!
Pavel stated he was only following orders. Seeing so many passengers had perished because of it, he sincerely apologized to everyone. But apologies were useless now. Elsa furiously yelled at him for a moment before calming down. She believed anger wasn't helpful. They needed to focus on landing the plane. However, both the captain and co-pilot were now incapacitated. Although the plane was on autopilot, the fuel would eventually run out. Elsa stated someone had to fly the plane. Just then, the restroom door suddenly unlocked, and Zach finally emerged. He suggested Corinne try to fly the plane. After all, she had learned to fly before and was the only person present with even a shred of experience. But Corinne said her last flight lesson was long ago, and she couldn't guarantee she could manage it now. Yet there was no other option. Everyone supported Corinne taking the controls. There simply wasn't anyone else remotely qualified. Meanwhile, 2 survivors remained in the main cabin, trapped near a giant spider, too scared to move. One man, trying to create an escape route for himself, deliberately threw a comb near the other person. The sound instantly attracted the spider's attention. The other person was quickly killed by the spider. The man, thinking his plan had succeeded, was feeling smug when he swiftly escaped into the restroom. But upon opening the door, a swarm of spiders overwhelmed him. Back in the tail section, Corinne agreed to give flying a shot with everyone's encouragement. They armed themselves with makeshift weapons and headed towards the cockpit. They encountered countless spiders along the way. Fighting them off one by one, they finally succeeded in getting Corinne to the cockpit through combined effort. Corinne heard labored breathing and discovered the captain was still barely alive. The captain fully supported Corinne's attempt to land the plane, but before he could finish saying the full password, he died. Corinne felt overwhelmed and unsure of herself. Outside, the others providing cover noticed the giant spider slowly approaching them. They quickly hid, but they couldn't evade the spider's senses. A male flight attendant was soon discovered. Seeing his life in danger, Elsa mustered her courage to fight the spider, but her weapon was too small and did no damage. Finally, both Elsa and the male flight attendant met their end. Corinne was still trying access codes, unaware the spider was creeping closer to her.
3973, 397, 2, 397, 979. Yes, fuck!
She urgently tried contacting the tower via radio, but signal failure prevented any connection. So she decided to call her father, who used to be a pilot, and surprisingly, the call went through. Her father told her she must reset the flight management system. He instructed her to disengage the autopilot first, then slowly pull back the throttle. He would contact the tower to notify them the plane was preparing to land. But before he could finish speaking, the signal was lost again. Corinne was on her own now. Outside the cockpit, the remaining few were still battling the giant spider. Pavel tried to appeal emotionally to the spider, asking it to spare him since he had cultivated it. Shockingly, the very next second, the spider carried him straight out through the window. Then, the last 3 survivors made it into the cockpit for refuge. Only the 4 of them remained on the entire plane. The giant spider was now on top of the plane. Seeing Gracie was seriously injured, Zach decided to go out for the first aid kit. The plane was approaching the airport airspace. They started to feel hopeful, but then sudden turbulence hit. Beth and Gracie, worried about Zach's safety, left the cockpit and saw him fighting the spider. Just as Zach thought he had won, a spider leg impaled him the next second. Gracie then opened the emergency exit hatch. The massive decompression instantly sucked the spider out. But Gracie, not wearing her seatbelt, was also sucked towards the opening. Even though she held on to Beth, the spider still pierced through her body and dragged her away. Devastated, Beth returned to the cockpit and told Corinne about Gracie. Zach, though severely injured, was still salvable. The plane was about to land very soon. Corinne gritted her teeth and pulled back the throttle. As the plane came to a stop, the spider on top, carried by momentum, rolled forward and was smashed to a pulp by the landing gear. The plane also landed successfully under Corinne's control. And that was the full story of the 2025 British horror film Spiders on a Plane. No further comment needed. The movie was just that amazing. Go watch it, guys. All right, that's all for today's share. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you in the next video.